I don't really think that people fully understand just how big Solana is going to get. And I think that oftentimes in history, if you look at various technology companies like Amazon, where they just started selling out books and people probably thought it was weird back then, someone was trying to sell books on the internet. Oftentimes these things look small and strange at first. And so there might be like this misconception that Solana is about like meme coins or NFTs or just like trading cryptocurrencies. And it's not. It's a lot more than that. And one of the best ways to explain this, and one of the best memes that I've seen on crypto Twitter about this, is internet capital markets. Internet capital markets are a really big idea, and it might seem vague for some people though, like what does that actually mean? And I was wondering that myself, like how are we defining this? It seems like a pretty big concept. Essentially, it's everything on the internet that has value that can be exchanged, which is just about everything is coming on chain. And in order for that to work, you need a high throughput, low latency, cheap, fast blockchain network that's decentralized, that actually can achieve that at scale and support, 5 billion people on the planet with an internet connection. The TAM here is massive. It's like kind of hard to imagine because it unlocks a composability and access for anyone to own anything on the planet, all 5 billion people that have an internet connection. This is something that has not existed before. So if you look at traditional capital markets, they are siloed and exclusive to an elite group of people who have the means and the financial capability to actually participate. The best thing that I found to explain this is this article that Helas just released that literally everyone should take a look at. I mean, there's a ton of alpha in here that explains what's happening on Solana and how big internet capital markets actually can be. So let's just take a look. I'm going to share my screen and just pull up this article for you. So if you scroll down here, it's Internet Capital Markets by the team at Helas. Love their writing. They've been doing a great job. They always have shipping content. But there's this introduction about internet capital markets. It was actually a term coined by Akshay, who is the non-CMO at the Solana Foundation. And it's kind of a rallying cry for Solana's long-term vision. And it gained popularity in the meme coin community and then has since morphed into something way, way bigger than that. And it's basically this article just talks about the fact that it's all forms of value can be represented, owned, and traded on a single internet native ledger. So it's a single store of the record of all of those exchanges of value. And I like this infographic here that they've made because it sums it up really, really well. All forms of value on a single internet native ledger. This is Solana in the middle. And there's just issuers, companies, founders. These are people who are trying to give others access to any kind of value that they're creating. And Solana just makes it super easy, and the applications built on top make it super easy for these issuers, these companies, these founders to actually create and share that value, and for the people who want to buy and participate in that to actually get access to it. And it's open to anybody. It's 24/7. There's tons of liquidity. It's transparent, and it's on chain. It's really capital efficient. This is game changing for the internet. And one of the things I'm most excited about this is this subsegment of this is AI, specifically agentic finance. We're about to see an explosion of AI agents that actually do things for you that are useful, and they need a place to transact, to exchange value, so that they can get the jobs done that you're asking them to get done. For example, like you're like, I want to book a trip to Mexico, and the AI just knows all your preferences, knows exactly what kind of rental car to get, what, activities to book for you. And it just does it. You give it a budget and it just does it. Well, the only way that that's going to happen in a frictionless way and at speed is going to be on Solana at the speed of light and with server to server payments. And there's technology being built right now on Solana that enables that to happen over HTTP. So this article goes on, it talks about how this is lowering barriers to asset issuance and lowering barriers to asset ownerships. And really, this is the holy grail of blockchain technology. We hadn't seen it accelerate before into this until now because there just wasn't a network that could do this at scale and was battle tested enough. And yes, people argue that Ethereum has been around and can do this, but it really can't. Like, it's just not fast enough and it's not cheap enough to do this at scale for 5.5 billion people on the planet, where Solana is. let's keep reading through here. I'm just going to skim through it just to highlight some of the things, but like they talk about a couple of different examples. So equities, which are the cornerstones of they believe anyway, the hypothesis is that they're the cornerstone of internet capital markets. I think that it could be true. I also think that there's a lot of other things outside of equities that can be traded on chain that could be as big, if not bigger. And again, I think the agentic finance piece could be even larger than the trading volume of equities on chain, just because of how fast AI will be able to buy and sell anything and get jobs done for you on the internet. Interesting fact that I didn't realize, but the public market is shrinking. Like less and less companies are going public, and they're going public much later. And so again, this goes back to what I was saying about people with means. You can only really get access to these deals and these investment opportunities if you're an accredited investor and you get in very, very early. Back in the 90s when Amazon, and they talk about this, IPO'd, they IPO'd at like, let's see, here's a chart, $400 million market cap. Well, there's no company IPOing under billions of dollars now. I mean, you've got companies like Stripe and SpaceX. Stripe is at 91 billion, still private. SpaceX is at 350 billion. There's just not as much access to opportunity to grow wealth. And one of the really concerning stats that they talk about here is the fact that, the price in order to get into one of these companies early, I can see if I can find it here. They talk about it in here, the fact that back in the early days, if you were trying to buy a stock, it would take something like, here it is. So in January 1971, a single S&P share traded at roughly $95, while the average production worker earned $3.55 an hour. So about 27 hours of labor bought one share. By December of 2024, the index averaged $6,011, while the same worker earned $30.67 an hour. That's requiring 196 hours, nearly 5 40-hour work weeks, to buy one share in a publicly traded company. That is a massive, massive barrier to entry. And so internet capital markets on Solana lower that barrier because people will go public essentially, or enable people to access the value they're creating, but ownership of that value much, much sooner. And realistically, like, you're not going to build wealth and financial freedom unless you own equity in things, unless you own things of value. And that is, if you're working and, renting out your time, it's going to be really, really difficult for you to build financial freedom. And Solana brings new opportunity to that. And so I just think that it's important for people to recognize that if they really want to understand how big Solana could possibly be. It talks about some existing examples here of this happening in the real world. Alaska Permanent Fund Dividend, that's kind of interesting. And then it starts talking about bringing ICMs to life. So there's a couple of different projects on Solana. There's Project Open, which is by the Solana Policy Institute. This is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization dedicated to educating policymakers and the future of the digital economy. It's led by CEO Miller Whitehouse Levin and President Christine Smith. SPI is a strategic push towards policy engagement, and Project Open is with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission in collaboration with Superstate and Orca, two companies that are on Solana, and a law firm called Lowenstein Standler LLP. And it's a proposal that outlines a comprehensive regulatory framework for compliant issuance and trading of tokenized securities on public blockchains. And for the next 18 months, the SEC sanctioned a pilot program. This is huge. They're actually experimenting with allowing registered issuers to trade equity securities as digital tokens while fully adhering to existing investor protections. That is massive. This is how we actually realize the vision of the NASDAQ coming on chain. This is where Solana started. It's like blockchain at NASDAQ speeds. Then there's Opening Bell by Superstate. This allows Opening Bell tokens represent actual shares, and it's fully compliant and issued on stage. There's friends of mine who run a company called Soul Strategies, which is a Solana digital asset treasury company in Canada that's going to launch later this year on Open Bell, so you'll be able to access their stock on chain. One of the ones that I thought was like a really valuable nugget of alpha here is Astana International Exchange is enabling dual listings. And it's through some partnership with Kazakhstan-based crypto exchange, Intebex. But the thing that I thought was really alpha and interesting was that AIX, Astana International Exchange, runs on Nasdaq's trading technology and is currently current lists over 138 securities, including Kazatomprom, which is the world's largest uranium producer. So they're enabling you to list both on their Nasdaq powered technology and on Solana powered technology with this partnership. That's kind of interesting. Like that Nasdaq technology is being used in conjunction with Solana powered technology. That feels kind of important. Like it could be a big step in an interesting direction. And then there's XStocks, which is by Backed. And again, these are allowing U.S. equities and ETFs to be traded on Solana. This is stuff that's already happening today. Same thing with Mirror Token. This is private shares. So this is some high profile private companies that you can get access to now, like our SpaceX. This is all stuff that's come just to life in the last 12 months. And then finally, Gavel, which is about formation of capital around early stage projects. So seed stage, not Series A probably, but maybe Series A that launched their token on chain, and they've got all these mechanisms in place to make sure that the capital formation is fair, and that token distribution actually works. And you can't get, things like sandwich attacks and stuff like that, which is maybe for another day. But my point is, the conclusion here is that internet capital markets are huge. It's happening on Solana, and you need to be paying attention to these companies and to this narrative because it is real. It's not just a narrative or a meme. And Solana already owns the vast majority of the market share for internet capital markets. Thanks for tuning in.